Please.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary to the founders. You inaugurated something. I remember when hope wasn't a catchphrase. I remember when it wasn't a campaign slogan. It was just something that was missing and precious and needed. And we didn't have a campfire around which to gather. Those of us who were still foolish enough to hope. See, I was born in 1968. That was the year they assassinated hope in our country. They shot Bobby Kennedy, shot Dr. King. They tried to beat the hope out of a bunch of young people in Chicago. And it took about 40 years between 1968 and 2008 for hope to return as a mass phenomenon in our country. But about 13 years prior, you were willing to light that campfire. See, people now will tell you that hope is out of fashion. Hope, you know, that's so 2008, you know. Well, it might be for the people who don't need any hope. But you have always stood up for the people who do. And I thank you very, very much, founders of Yes Magazine. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Now, I want to set the record straight about a couple of things. I did not have my resume in at the White House. I think I was the only person at the White House that didn't apply for a job. I might be the only person in this room that didn't apply for a job. But it was an honor to serve. And you don't turn those folks down when you see the country in crisis and there's a chance to serve. And so many people, they still come up to me now. It's been almost 2 years. And they tell me how sorry they are and how badly they feel that I'm not there. And I always have to remind them, I served in the White House for 6 months, which is 6 months longer than you. So, you know, let's not shed too many tears. And if anybody here knows me as the Courtons do, it's about 6 months longer than anybody expected me to serve. So, but here we are. And Sister Pua had the audacity once again to raise this question of standing at the gates of hope. Sister Corton had the audacity to stand up in front of us and say, yes, 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 yes. We haven't heard that. It's been almost 2 years since Yes We Can would just have come pouring out of any audience of people with a half a brainstem. how do we get the hope back? We have a campfire. We didn't have that 16 years ago. We have it now. Nobody can take that from us as long as we keep Yes Magazine and the community together. But how do we make hope a mass phenomenon again? See, we struggle for change, but change becomes impossible when you lose hope. How do we reignite a bigger fire? Well, first of all, those of you in this room have a responsibility to remember something. If you want to know where the hope went and how you can get it back, remember where the hope came from. As important and as inspirational as the inauguration of President Obama was, that is not the moment that hope was born in America. Now, I was at the inauguration. People talk about how beautiful it was. Those are the people who watched it on television. Those of you who were there, what was it? Cold. It was cold. It was beautiful on TV. It was cold in person. And if you were there, you did not look pretty at all until a helicopter flew over. Then you're like, eh. But I digress. That was a hopeful moment, a beautiful moment. But that's not when the hope was born in America. This modern movement for hope and change really was born not in Iowa, but really all the way back in 2003. In some ways inspired by what happened here in 1999, but certainly in 2003. Unjust war about to be launched on innocent people, and ordinary people, many of you in this room, and the folks who you could reach out to right now on your little phone that was ringing, put millions of people in the streets. We put more people in the streets in the first 6 weeks of opposition to that war than been put in the streets in the first 6 years of the opposition to the Vietnam War. The New York Times called us the world's second superpower, world public opinion. No Messiah, no superhero, no savior, just me and you and you and you and all of us standing together using a fancy new technology called email and we brought the best out in this country in our millions. Lost. Could have given up then, could have gone home, didn't. The next year we poured that energy into an election campaign. We had a good candidate, but no superhero, no Messiah, and yet we came within 100,000 votes in Ohio of ending some of the madness back then in 2004. But we lost. Could have quit then, didn't. 2005, the heartbreak of Katrina, an American city underwater, a federal government missing in action, hearts broken on both sides of the aisle. And we began as progressives to innovate. We had a new fancy technology called blogging. Something called the Huffington Post was born, and so many other voices. The Apollo Alliance was born. The Democracy Alliance was born. Color of Change was born. So many organizations. Look back at your own history and remember the last time we felt sad. Yeah, for a moment, people started talking about going to Canada. As if they want you in Canada. Why do we say that? You know? They want you right here doing what you're doing, standing up for the best in your country. They don't want you up in Canada. We're going to stay here and fight. We're going to stay here and fight. Yeah, we aren't tough progressives. We aren't tough. Ask me how I know. I'm not tough. You hit me, it hurts. Call me names, lie on me, smear me, I'll cry, I'll sit down. But we're resilient. We're resilient. And after we absorb the blows, we always find some way to stand back up. And we stood back up. And we out-innovated and out-imagined and out-loved, and somehow, by the time you got 2006, Karl Rove had been bragging in 2004. Our party's going to rule for 20 years. And we held them to about 24 months because of the movement that we built in this country. And we put Nancy Pelosi in the third most powerful seat in the American government. We did that, me and you, ordinary people. No Messiah, no superhero, no savior. Just me and you and you. And it was in that moment, Dal, see you out there, Dal. It was in that moment, Dal, that we had created so much hope and demonstrated so much desire for change that, thank God, a young senator named Barack Obama got outside the bubble, outside the Beltway, and came out here trying to sell a book. And you know what he ran into? You. And not just in Seattle. Y'all would just embarrass yourselves in Seattle when he came out here in 2006. But all across the country, people were fired up and ready to go. And he had the wisdom to say to himself, my God, something's happening in our country. Something beautiful. And it's bigger than the McCain brand, and it's bigger than the Clinton brand, and it's bigger than the Giuliani brand, and it's bigger than the Democrats or the Republicans. It's the American people standing up in their beauty and in their genius. And if I stand with them, I can take this movement to a place that they can't even imagine. And he did that. And the man met the movement, met the moment, and we inspired the world. But here's what's important for you, Yes community. As inspirational as that moment was, and as inspirational as President Obama was, is, can be, and will be, don't ever let anybody take your own history away from you. You inspired him first. You inspired him first. You were the authors of the hope. We were the authors of the hope. So if there's a hope gap in America, don't just point your finger at the White House. It didn't just come from the White House. It came from you and me and all of us standing together. We are the authors of hope in a democracy. We the people. And the slogan was never, yes, he can. Slogan was, yes, we can, and we still can. And now is the time that we need a movement for hope and change. It's easy when the opposition party is falling apart and It's clear to the whole world that it's time for a changing of the guards. It's easy. But now is the time that we need a movement for hope and change. 20, 30 million Americans that used to be middle class have fallen into poverty in the past 2 years. Now is the time we need a movement for hope and change. And I guarantee you that there will be a fight back. There's no question about that. These young veterans who are coming home to nothing, to no hope and no jobs, 17 suicide attempts a day, they're not going to just lay down and die. They will stand up and demand an opportunity, having done what they were asked to do in another country, to have an opportunity to serve honorably in this country. They'll fight. They'll stand up. It's guaranteed. These young people who are graduating off a cliff into the worst economy in 2 generations. It doesn't matter if they finish college, drop out of college, finish high school, drop out of high school, all going back to the same couch anyway. They're not going to stay on those couches. They'll fight. They'll stand up. That's a guarantee. Our everyday heroes, the ones that the media calls the public employees. You know, the public employees are going to be laid off. We're going to lay off 1 million public employees. No, they're not. That's dehumanizing. Call them what they are, news media. Cops and teachers and nurses and firefighters, the backbone of our communities. Call them what they are. Call them what they are. See, these are America's everyday heroes that the so-called patriots are willing to throw under the bus. The first sign of trouble. They've never abandoned us. Cops, teachers, nurses, firefighters, they've never abandoned us in a crisis. But the first economic hiccup, the so-called patriots want to abandon them. No, they're going to stand up. That's a guarantee. Here's what's not guaranteed. And here's what only we can determine. Will all of these little casualties of this massive economic crisis fight alone? Or will we fight together? Will we stand together? And when we stand together, will we stand together on a principle that is resonant enough and beautiful enough to bring out the best of the American people again? That's in our hands. That's in our hands. And I want to say that I look to the Politics of Hope, inaugurated by Yes Magazine, for guidance. Because this is bigger now than just Democrats versus Republicans. This is bigger now than just rich versus poor. This is deeper than just Wall Street versus Main Street. This is about the worst of Wall Street versus the United States of America. This is about a cheap patriotism versus a deep patriotism. This is about a patriotism that would take a wrecking ball and paint it red, white, and blue and ram it through our communities and expect us to stand and salute a cheap patriotism versus a deep patriotism and a deep love of country. That's what's at stake now. That's what's at stake now. Now on this side of the political aisle, we don't tend to brag on our patriotism. We tend to be quieter about it, but you know, still waters run deep. And I'm not afraid to say that Paul Ryan's budget is a threat to our country. Paul Ryan's budget would knock out more critical infrastructure than Al-Qaeda ever dreamed of. Let's be clear that Paul Ryan's budget is a threat. It's a threat not just to Democrats or to the president, but to what we hold dear, what we have built up as a nation over 100 years of progress toward the beauty of our founding dream. I'm not afraid to say that, because one of the challenges that we have is that we don't own our own patriotism. There's nobody who's fighting harder for liberty and justice for all than the people in this room. There's nobody that's fighting harder. Our environmental community, standing up against the odds. I have 2 little boys. They're in public schools and they're learning to sing little songs. And they come home and they sing them. This land is your land. This land is my land. They sing them. They sing America the Beautiful. Well, I hope that someday those little boys will somehow think and get the radical notion that maybe America's beauty is something they should try to defend. And that they'll stand up and say, I want to defend America's beauty against the clear cutters and the oil spillers. See? That's what environmentalism is. It's standing up for America's beauty. We need to start talking to America in a language that America can understand. There's a deeper patriotism that animates our efforts. See, you can't love America in the abstract. You got to love every single person here, you see. And you can't just have a slogan that says you're for liberty. I'm for liberty. I love my sisters and brothers in the Tea Party who talk about liberty. I do. As an African American, given what happened to my ancestors, nobody liked liberty more than me. I mean, we have no quarrel on that. But we have to reach out to our sisters and brothers and say, this struggle, this deeper patriotism, we're fighting for you too. We don't want our sisters and brothers in the Tea Party to suffer the catastrophe that would come as a result of their victory. We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to live in neighborhoods where if they smell smoke, there's no firehouse, no fire station for 20 miles because of the cuts. We don't want them, if they get scared, not to be able to find a police officer because of the cuts. We don't want them waiting on 911 for 11 minutes, 17 minutes. We don't want them in the Tea Party to have their grandchildren going to the public schools with 50 kids in a classroom, 6 books, and no chalk. We're fighting for them too. That's the moral power of our movement. We're fighting for them too. We have to be clear. In closing, I'll say to you this. I'm proud when they stand up and they say they're fighting for liberty. But the Pledge of Allegiance doesn't stop with the word liberty. The Pledge of Allegiance doesn't stop with the word liberty. We're not 1/3 patriots in this movement. We're full Pledge of Allegiance patriots. And we believe in liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. Say it with me. Liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice. Justice for the lesbians and the gays. Justice for the immigrants. Justice for all, for everybody, with no one left out. And what I want to say, and I know I'm over my time, but let me just say it to the founders. I know it gets difficult. I know it gets hard. You worry about the money. You worry that your efforts are in vain. You're worried that the country's moving in the wrong direction. Don't you give up your faith and your belief in this community, in these values, or in this country. We are going to make this movement for hope and change the campfire for this nation once again. And when we do, we will have an America where it's safe for people to hope and dream again. Thank you very much.